Well, good Monday afternoon to everybody. It's Joe, and this is another webcast. I can't believe it. It's our 12th week of the course, and this is the eve of Election Day, of course. I don't know if everybody gets tomorrow off like we do at Coastal. We do not have classes scheduled tomorrow, which is great, so that everybody can get out and hit the polls. So good luck with that. Let's talk about what we did last week. We had 3 modules, of course, the interactive quizzing, the student grade analysis, and the student document markup. I think they got progressively easier, but you can be the judge of that. Let's talk first about the quizzing module. In this, you used either 2 different feedback models that I presented to you in the module. One was object-based, the other was slide-based. And I have to say, even though virtually everybody got full credit for this particular homework assignment, I have to admit I was just a little disappointed that most of you took the easy way out and used the slide-based model for feedback, which I think is quite a bit technically easier than the object-based feedback. And I think the object-based method probably is more useful, but it's definitely a little bit more tedious. So I would encourage you folks to give that a second look. Certainly not discounting the overall value of the slide-based model, but the object-based model, I think, gives you a little bit more bang for your buck, but there is a little bit more front-loading that needs to be processed there. In any event, everybody did, for the most part, really well on that. I was very pleased. Talk about the grade sheets. This was, as I said in last week's webcast, this was always, or is always, a dilemma for me, offering this in the course. I had asked you guys for some feedback on whether or not you think teaching teachers to use Excel to manage their grades is worth keeping in this class, especially when we consider that many districts use some type of web-based tool like PowerSchool, PowerTeacher. And I ask this every semester, and the vote always seems to be overwhelmingly yes, but I keep wondering if that's going to change. Are teachers going to become so dependent and proficient at using these web-based tools like PowerSchool that there's no need to include Excel for grading? I would love it if I could get some more feedback for that. I'm going to post a prompt in the discussion forum. In your homework assignments, there were 5 people who responded. 3 of them were very much in favor of keeping it, and the other 2 didn't really. Either one didn't have an opinion, or the other seemed to think that it didn't need to be in the class anymore, given the web tools that are being used in their district. So anyway, give me some feedback on that. As far as your actual assignment, what you turned in, most people did very well on this assignment, and I know it's technical, especially calculating that drop score format to calculate that dropped weighted average. I know that's tough, but virtually everybody did really well with this, and the ones who had trouble with it only had trouble in a couple questions, and we worked on some of that in the discussion forums and other media. Some of you came to campus. And anyway, the only real general trend that I noticed in the grade sheet exercise was that some of you simply didn't pay attention to the question and looking at, in particular, the weight values. You calculated 10% instead of 15% when the question said the weight value for quizzes, for example, should have been 15%. And that simple mistake would screw up the spreadsheet, of course, and then you would end up getting inaccurate data. So that was really the only trend I noticed. Everybody did very well on this, so I was overall very, very pleased. And I was especially pleased with the next assignment, the markup exercise. That's really easy, but at the same time, it's not something that many people claim to have known before. And so I always enjoy teaching this because teachers tend to find it very, very useful. I'm not trying to save trees here necessarily, but it's nice to have an all-digital workflow. And the different techniques that were explained in that module, especially using the review functions themselves and turning them on, turning them off, where you can track those changes, is very helpful, not just in your classwork, but also in your collaborations with other teachers, especially if you're co-writing some document, whether it's something for scholarly purposes, a grant application, or who knows what else. The review functions that are in the new versions of Word are very robust, and thankfully they've gotten much easier to use. And you guys did wonderful with that. And I will say that the example that was used in there is an authentic student example. It's an ESL student, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to make sure to choose an example that had very obvious issues so that everybody could find something that was wrong with it and then mark it up. Some of you even put down some comments saying, wow, I can't believe somebody will write something this bad. But as far as you need to know, this was an authentic student, and it was an ESL student. I think that probably accounts for some of those difficulties that she had writing that document. In any event, that's what we did. You guys had a very good week. There are 3 modules, but the workload, I think, you'll be happy to know, starting this week, things really get easier. We have 2 different modules, learning how to mail merge documents, take a database or list in Excel or in some other database format, and merge that with a form letter to create a third document, a merged letter. And then also you're going to learn how to use Excel to plan and manage technology budgets. And that's going to mean that, among other things, you get to go shopping. You're going to have a fictitious budget, and you're going to go out and plan to buy real technology. And this is always torture, I think, for some people, because this is wishful thinking that somebody would just plop $7,000 in your hands and say, go buy whatever you need for your classroom. But that's what I'm doing, hypothetically, of course, just to see what you would buy, first of all. So it's a good integration exercise. If you had to choose how to upgrade your classroom, what would you get? And you can make some basic assumptions about your class if you want to. You've got network capability, so you don't have to buy a router. Maybe you can assume you have a projector and a smart board even, that's fine. But what else would you get? So you can make whatever assumptions you want, but spend that $7,000. And remember, you can never go over your budget limit, because if you do, then it sits on the desk for 6 weeks and nobody tells you anything. And then you call them up wondering, hey, did my budget ever get approved? And they say, no, you were over budget. Well, why didn't you tell me it was over budget? I would have taken something out to make sure it stays under. No, I'm sorry. I'm being bitter here because I speak from experience. Sometimes the channels of communication in large organizations for procurement are not always as efficient as they should be. I can tell that some of you are nodding your heads right now. So anyway, you have 2 assignments, a mail merge and this budget exercise, and I look forward to reflecting on those and seeing what you bought, especially. And I think you'll find that the mail merge process is very practical. So with that said, the workload is getting lighter. We're on the backside of this course now. The heavy lifting is done. You've earned the privilege, I guess, to start not coasting, but I think the course starts to relax a little here, and I do that deliberately because I know your teaching gets busier as you get to the end of the marking period. And this typically works out really well. So I look forward to seeing everything next Monday. And in the meantime, as always, if you have questions, please post them in the discussion forum. Have a great election week, and I will see you online.